Nostalgia, a feeling that propels you back to the past. Remember the clothes, cars, and architecture we once loved or hated, but with time have lost their popularity to new styles and trends? One might have the same regard for wooden boats. The look of elegance, grace, and fine craftsmanship was once the choice in boating, but gave way to the fiberglass era. Now these classic qualities have returned in a splash of renewed interest. Journey through the wooden pleasure boat scene. Meet a variety of boat enthusiasts. Find out what is so intriguing to them about these mahogany runabouts. Discover new techniques that have revived wooden boat construction. See how craftsmen are handling a shortage of building materials in new ways. In the decades from the 1920s through the 1950s, when a great variety of wooden boats were produced, certain models were more popular than others. How fashionable a boat was depended upon its speed, how well it sliced through the water, and how beautiful the boat appeared. But in the 1990s, popularity is not always based on these characteristics. It is often how rare the boat is. Jim Murtaugh, son of the nation's first Chris Craft dealer, is a recognized expert in wooden boating circles.
The most desirable probably are the barrel decks and the triple cockpits. Everybody wants a triple cockpit as well as a barrel deck. So I think they'll continue to show an increase in value every year.
I think the thing that drives me is I look for something that's unusual. I really want something that somebody else doesn't have. I don't care if it's a car or if it's a boat. I want something that is low in production numbers.
People aren't finding them in old barns and along the road anymore. They've all been picked up, so they're getting to be very rare indeed.
Today, a boat auction is just one of many meeting places for boat enthusiasts to find these rare hulls. Who are these individuals, and why are they drawn to these boats? Kurt Hasselback is the curator at the Thousand Island Shipyard Museum.
It's an incredible combination of people. It's a cross-section. Some are quite eccentric and extremely wealthy, and this is a hobby for them. Some people, it's more a passion.
You're still getting the purists that want an antique boat and everything exact, authentic, and original. You're also getting a connoisseur, kind of a nouveau buyer, and he's interested in the exotic boats, the replicas, and so on, because they're serviceable, they're fast, they have the appeal, big hopped-up engines, and they're still lovely.
When most people think of how boats are built, they often think of fiberglass. As fiberglass boats were introduced, low maintenance was a successful selling feature. No sanding, no varnishing. While the sleek, colorful, modern fiberglass boats are alluring to millions of boat owners, an increasing number of discriminating buyers are seeking out wooden boats.
It isn't just the beauty of the boat, but it's also just the way the boats ride, the way they plane in the water, the sound. It gets to be infectious.
Well, the people who buy a wooden boat today, I think, want to recognize the craftsmanship that went into the old boats and preserve that heritage.
People that have fiberglass boats, they say that they're maintenance-free, but that's a bunch of malarkey. You'll see them out there polishing and scrubbing just as hard as I am.
The plastic boats of today are being made with a cost factor involved for the most part, and most of them do not have much shape to them, but they don't have any reverse curves in them because they can't pull them out of a mold. So everything has to have a taper to it, and they just don't have the contours and the nice curved lines and sweeping contours of yesteryear that we're able to do with wood.
Because of a growing demand for authentic wooden boats, particularly the runabouts, craftsmen have been constructing new and rebuilding the old, the decrepit, and the tired. What is keeping the demand alive, however, is not just aesthetics, but also economics. Financial rewards can be gained from restoring and selling a classic antique boat model. Many feel that a well-maintained boat is a sound investment.
$8,000 to $10,000 you can pick up some of those boats, and a little bit of elbow work and some work, and you have yourself a piece of equipment that's worth $25,000. And that's a good investment.
I feel that classic boats, because they're made in a finite number, offer pleasurable investment. You can enjoy them while they're appreciating, or you appreciate it while it appreciates.
Another reason people buy these boats is status, or prestige, which comes from owning and driving a wooden boat, whether it is a restored antique or a reproduction of a classic.
I think this is a status symbol, and it's something that you can use and enjoy at the same time. It's an ego trip.
You can pull up next to a gas dock or at a restaurant and pull in next to a $200,000 offshore-style boat, and they don't even look at the offshore boat. They come over and look at this.
It's a great feeling, because everybody's always pointing at it, like, look at that old boat go, you know. See, like, when you're out in the lake or out in the river, there's not, all these aren't all together, see, and you're, like, here and there, and you kind of stand out from everybody else, from all the fiberglass boats today, which look all the same to me anyways.
For some, wooden boats have been a part of the owner's life as long as they can remember. By having or maintaining a wooden boat, they can relive the past.
A lot of it is a nostalgia thing where people have bought the boat that they remember from their youth, that kind of thing, or that Dad had. And some of the other people have just grown up with them all their lives and have kept up the boats.
As for myself, it brings back a lot of childhood fantasies about when I was young and, you know, riding in one, and I'm just redoing it now.
Some wouldn't consider owning anything but a wooden boat. The sensations of riding in a wooden boat are like nothing else.
It's just really enjoyable to smell them, hear them, look at them, love them, and sit and ride in them.
Whatever the reason for owning a wooden boat, most would agree it is a pleasure beyond compare.
I think it's everything all rolled in one. To me, it's more than just going out on the water for a ride. Wood boating is like floating a fine piece of furniture.
Building a fine piece of furniture, floating or not, takes a certain talent indeed. The skilled workers that build these boats are unique individuals. Whether the craft is assembled by one person or is mass-produced, the builders are a critical element in the wooden boat industry.
Oh, a craftsman is something, is a person that can create with his hands.
Good workers and craftsmen do different things. A person's good with tools and used to working on boats, yes, there are not too many left. It isn't a trade that many want to follow. There's a lot of work connected with it, a lot of hard labor.
In the 1930s, when this boat was made, there was an abundance of craftsmen. In the 1950s, with the advent of the fiberglass boat, fewer wooden boats were produced. As a result, craftsmen began looking for other jobs. The auto industry, with its high pay, began to attract many one-time builders and pattern makers.
So many of the older fellas that worked for 50 years in the trade and have now retired really have ended up taking an awful lot of the skills and the knowledge with them.
To find dedicated craftsmen that are able to do this kind of work and that have the personality and the dedication and the interest in doing this type of work is a relatively difficult process.
Now we've got a society with a lot of people that are smart but don't have any skills. And anybody now that has a talent for doing anything with their hands can just about put their price on anything they're doing.
For the past 20 years, there was little reason for a person to pursue a career in the wooden boat building trade. Now that there is a renaissance of craft building, a few young people are beginning to learn the skills needed to build these boats.
We have some real good young people now that's becoming involved in boat building and plank fitting and so forth. And we also have some of the older fellows yet that do it. it's kind of a nice mix. It's nice to have the young people work with the old people. We've been fortunate that way.
In the 1920s, Chris Smith & Sons Boat Company introduced a V-bottomed runabout. Other builders of the day also adopted this style as the industry standard for pleasure boating. In the 1930s, the boats were built under the name Chris-Craft and were assembled in Algonac, Michigan. Other well-known builders, such as John Hacker and Gar Wood, also built boats in southeastern Michigan. These boats weren't just built for local use. Many of these boats were shipped to notable people throughout the world.
The type of boats that we build now were really started in the 1920s, and they were purchased by people who wanted to travel primarily from their summer home to their area of work.
These fashionable runabouts were the ultimate in class and distinction. They were versatile, yet prestigious to those fortunate enough to own one or two or three. While the boats were structurally similar, builders added their own design features for performance and sheer beauty. Although there has been a new wave of boat building in recent years, numerous craftsmen have continued to focus their efforts on antique boat restoration. However, as the supply of original boats dwindles, many small boat shops have begun replicating and remanufacturing wooden boats.
Reproduction is a copy of an original boat made from the same plans as the original boat, made to look like it, behave like it, and so forth.
I've been an advocate of old boats for years, but if I had my choice now, I'd buy a new one because it has all the beauty of the old boats and marvelous performance, and it will last better than old boats.
When you start talking about building boats from ground up, I don't think you're going to see very many places that'll be doing that for the fact that there's too much involved and it takes too long to learn all it takes to do the operation.
In the 1980s, 3 companies, one in Michigan and 2 in New York State, began building reproductions of Chris Crafts, Hacker Crafts, and Gar Woods. After seeing the lack of certain antique boat models, they took the initiative to look back to the past, search out old plans, and talk to experts in the industry. The result has been a replica that outwardly looks like the original, but has modern-day engineering. Steve Nortice, with the cooperation of Chris Smith, grandson of the founder of Chris Craft, became one of the early reproducers of wooden runabouts in the country.
Grandcraft started 10 years ago by a young fellow who wanted one of these boats for himself and thought if he built 3, he could sell 2 and pay for all 3.
Chris Smith was very generous and came out to help and designed our boats, and it was timely. It was the right thing to do at the right time.
Dick Sly, whose family has been prominent in furniture making in western Michigan, was also a wooden boat advocate. In 1984, his interest in Grand Craft compelled him to buy the company. Since the name Chris Craft was being used for the manufacture of fiberglass boats, the name Grand Craft was adopted. But even today, the Chris Craft Corporation sees the importance of its heritage.
Recently, OMC bought Chris Craft, and in order to reinstate the name Chris Craft as a leader in boats, OMC contracted with Grand Craft to build a limited edition of the 24-foot triple cockpit Classic. Of this limited edition Chris Craft that we're building, there will be 24 built, and that will be the end forever of this model boat.
On the shores of New York's Lake George, Bill Morgan has transformed a small, nondescript boatyard he bought in the 1950s into a full-fledged boat-building factory.
This is a new production Hacker Craft boat, 24-footer, standard model, 3 cockpits.
With more demand for these boats and fewer to restore, Morgan bought the Hackercraft Boat Company name and expanded his boatyard activities to include building new boats. To the south of Lake George, near the banks of the Hudson River, two young brothers have received high praise for their restoration and reproduction work.
Tom and Larry Turcott are two young men from the Albany area who started the Garwood Boat Company approximately 3 years ago.
We were restoring boats, and we had so much restoration that we made a choice to go into full-time.
The Turcotts, whether building a new Garwood boat or restoring an old derelict, pay particular attention to detail.
Every board that we put on the boats is what we call resawn. We take a thick 2-inch board, slice it down the middle, and then one side goes on one side and one goes on the other. Same thing on the side planks. And the reason for that is your grain patterns all match. It's more work, but again, it's way back in the early boat building days, they also did that.
While Grandcraft, Hackercraft, and Garwood build reproductions of old boats, some builders choose to use their skills in the design of new and original boats. One of the few builders left in Michigan is the Maya Boatworks. The Maya family has been building their own design of boats since the turn of the century.
Maya Boatworks was originally formed in Fairhaven at about 1914, and it was my grandfather was the original founder. He was affiliated with John L. Hacker, the legendary boat designer, and he built some of the early Hacker crafts.
The boats that the Mayas build are not copies of other boats. They are custom designed for the owner.
We try to build one boat a year, and most of the boats that we build, we have a lot of people interested in us building a boat, but we can only build so many. Your ideas keep changing, and you keep getting new ideas, and we think about things, well, wouldn't it be neat to do this or that? So we get somebody that would be interested in that type of a project, and we sell them that project.
On the St. Clair River in Algonac, Michigan, Tom Cuthbertson began his boat building career at the Chris Craft plant in the 1920s.
It's a difficult business to be in, to stay in, building reproductions or even restoring boats. I don't think I would want to get in a position where my whole shop setup was to build new boats, replicas of the old Hackers, Chris Craft, or Garwood. The repair work has been more dependable for me, and there's always something going on.
Many of the craftsmen Tom once worked with have either retired or have changed occupations. Tom, however, has remained in this occupation for the majority of his 82 years.
The fact that I like working on boats, I like people coming in, talking boat, and all these things combined, it just makes up for a lifetime of working on boats, I guess.
A Canadian builder, Dwight Boyd of Clarion Boat Company, has a different vision of a reproduction. He is building boats of similar design to a 1920s Gold Cup racer, but with modern styling.
Clarion Boat Company was established about 8 years ago in Campbellford, Ontario. We are primarily in the restoration business. About 3 years ago, we saw the supply of the original boats drying up and becoming more and more scarce, particularly in the performance area. That prompted us to take a look and decided to build a contemporary classic, if you will, a boat with the look, feel, and essence of the Gold Cup racers of the 20s era, but with modern methods of construction, modern building materials, modern running surface and power plant. Therefore, eliminating many of the problems that are associated with wooden boats.
While all of these builders have in common the building of new boats, their techniques in building them can differ. The conventional method of construction, which is how the boats were originally built, uses a double bottom of planks fastened with screws. Steve Nortice, in his restoration work, uses an in-between system. using bedding compounds and a flexible adhesive developed in the 1950s called thiocol.
Now, one of the things about having the adhesive in there is it lets the boat move with the water. The reason a wood boat is designed to actually work with the waves. If you running down the lake and you lift up a floorboard and watch, the bottom of your boat will be moving in and out perhaps as much as an inch.
The others have adopted a new system.
I think everybody that's building today is pretty much at least using some forms of epoxy, either for gluing planks together or just for sealing the interiors up so water doesn't penetrate through and cause the rot process.
The wet epoxy saturation technique, more commonly known as the West system, was developed 20 years ago by the Goujon brothers of Bay City, Michigan. Some feel that the West system alleviates many of the maintenance problems associated with wooden boats.
The construction on this is a little different than the older wooden boats in the fact that it's what we call a cold-molded hull. It's built of several layers of wood that are glued together with an epoxy adhesive, and it's just the outer layer then that is the finished layer of mahogany.
The big advantage, as I see it, is that the boat doesn't have any seams, and so the boat can stay in the water or out of the water indefinitely. There's never any soaking up period required.
With the West system, some craftsmen still use screws and fasteners. Others feel the epoxy's great strength eliminates the need for them.
We bond the planking to a substrate. The screws are put in the planks only to act as clamps or temporary fasteners. Once the epoxy has cured beneath the plank, the screws become redundant. We withdraw them and drill and plug the holes.
I like to combine the old and the new. I like to have my boats with all the main timbers fastened together with the regular fasteners plus the West system. If the glue lets go, the screws will hold it.
While the conventional boats offer a smoother ride, it is evident that the greater strength and the rot prevention qualities of the West system have helped in the builder's decision to use this technique. The method of building these wooden boats has changed considerably since the 1920s. While many of the tools used are electric power tools, tools used by the craftsmen of yesteryear have not been forgotten.
Still, the hands, the best tool there is. The good Lord gave us two hands, and it's the best there is. We simply use them and use them to our advantage.
We have a lot of tools that my grandfather had been passed down to my dad, has been passed down to us. A lot of our tools were made in the 20s, the early 1900s, and we use them every day. A lot of them you grow accustomed to having, and if you have a particular job, that's the only thing you use. And to lose your tools would be like, losing your best friend. You make sure that you keep a handle on them.
The tools that we use for building these boats are very similar to what were used 50 years ago, but we do use electric drills and electric sanders. Any improvement in the quality of the work, we won't hesitate to use a proper tool that's available today.
We also use an additional type of tool that are used in applying the epoxies and working with the modern chemicals and resins that we have available to us today.
Whether a wooden boat is being restored or reproduced, there is much more to assembling the boat than wood and finishing work. Parts and hardware serves as a challenge to find and repair. Sometimes after years of searching to find the perfect hull, it may be found not to have all of its original hardware. If all the hardware is not with the boat, the project cost can increase considerably. When certain parts are needed, one man whose name often comes up is Pete Henkel.
Just selling parts and building engines and this sort of thing until the great Father in the sky comes to get me.
Over the years, many old wooden boats were either junked or burned. As a result, much of the hardware was lost. Today, if that original cleat or bow light cannot be located, other alternatives must be considered.
There's a mixture of people are looking for chrome parts, and of course a lot of the chrome parts castings are being made new.
It's either scrounge, tap various sources of supply, or they have to be duplicated or made. In many cases, if we have one part, we are able to send it out, have it cast in bronze, and then polished and plated to match.
One difficult aspect in keeping an antique boat in original condition is maintaining the engine. In the reproduction boats, new, powerful engines are being installed. But for the restoration boats, keeping the original engine running and dependable can be a nightmare.
It will become a more expensive thing as time goes by. And there'll be those that will stay with the original power, there'll be those that will not.
Some people enjoy the challenge of being able to find a boat and put it back to the completely original shape that it was in when it was new. And they do whatever it takes to get it there.
A lot of people ask the question, well, is there old power in there? And even though it's a new boat, we don't offer old power because the old power comes with a lot more work involved in maintenance. The new power is a blessing to these wooden boats.
Each wood has a different character, and when you work with it, you get a different feel. They're harder, you get a different smell to it.
Problems have arisen in the availability of particular types of mahogany, the primary type of wood from which antique boats have been built for over half a century. When choosing wood for a simple construction job, many different types of wood can be substituted for another. But in wooden boat building, the craftsmen need wood that has certain properties.
We're using two basic woods today, Philippine mahogany and Honduras mahogany, which is the genuine mahogany, Switina macrophylla.
This craft uses an awful lot of Philippine. It sands a lot quicker, but the one thing it also does, it expands and contracts more because the grain structure is different than the genuine mahogany.
We feel that the African and the Honduras is